Hey guys, I want to welcome you to this first edition of what will hopefully be many Real Truth with Nick. That's what we're going to be digging into. My plan is to post these once a week, and we'll be answering questions, trying to help you guys out there in internet land with some of these questions you might be having. But again, this is Real Truth with Nick, and we're going to keep these pretty quick. Pardon the rhyming there. My goal is for these videos to be 5 minutes or less. So let's jump into the first question that we have. That first question was, why would God condone killing? Why would God condone the killing that we see in the Old Testament of him going and ordering, whether it was the Israelites to conquer a particular city, to wipe out a particular tribe or people group? Why did he do that if at the same time he has forbidden murder? If he's forbidden killing in that context. And I think that's the important piece of this, is that we are able to differentiate between the idea of murder and the idea of death, or somebody being punished for something, and that oftentimes manifesting in what could only be described as a death sentence. I think it's really important that we recognize when it comes to who God is and his nature, that God is love, but God is also just. And when we remember that God is love, but also just, we recognize and we understand that justice is a part of his nature as much as love is a part of his nature. Now, I'll say right up front, answers to questions like this aren't easy. They aren't easy for me to process. They aren't easy for me personally to even handle sometimes. So I recognize the feelings of the one who asked this question, and also those of you out there who may hear this. So just know my heart in that. But I would just say that recognizing from the Old Testament forward about how God dealt with injustice, and recognizing that for most of us, even those amongst us who are pacifists, even those amongst us who are, anti-war and all these kinds of ideas, recognizing that sometimes death, sometimes the punishment of death is required to bring about justice. Most every one of us can think of instances where that would be the case. If somebody was attacking us or attacking somebody in our family, and the only way to defend them or to defend ourselves was with taking their life, most would do that. We also have to recognize the difference between who Jesus is in his nature, and as we try to follow his model for living, which we should, and the difference between that and a human government. A human government that part of its responsibility is to provide protection and, in whatever way it can, meter out justice for its people. Those are different fundamental principles. And while we model our lives after Jesus, Jesus didn't come to purely anyway, to set an example for a government. Doesn't mean that a government can't learn something from Jesus. Of course it can. But that was not certainly the main crux of what Jesus came to do. And so let me finish with that point. While we can recognize and understand how difficult it is to answer this question, and we can recognize and understand the challenges in this, because we recognize that God is love, but he's also justice. Recognizing that in times God has metered out that justice, whether it be through mankind or whether it be through him simply removing someone from the picture, from life itself, if you will. Remember in all of this that God is love in the face of all of that, and that in spite of all that we've just discussed, God performed the ultimate redemptive act, the ultimate life-giving act in giving his only son, in sacrificing his only son for the sins of all mankind. So that ultimately, whatever physical death might be experienced here, whether it's us or whether it was a people group thousands of years ago, whatever might be experienced here can be overcome by the blood of Jesus, and is overcome by the blood of Jesus, and that ultimate sacrifice, which he did not ultimately ask us to make, but made himself, so that we could be redeemed, so that we could be saved, so that we could have life, have it eternal, and have it in the full. So I hope we've answered that question. Certainly I've done to the best of my ability, and we'll look forward to more of these videos. We'll make them real truth with Nick, and we'll make them real quick. Thanks a lot.